the Brooklyn Supreme Court, when the first death penalty case in New York State happened in 1968, and I said that Pataki and Giuliani had taken humanity 2 steps backwards with the reintroduction of the death penalty. And a week later, I reported to parole, and I was accused of not reporting 4 months ago, and I was actually given 5 years. The new frontier for humanity, you see, is the appreciation, value, and respect for life. That is our new frontier, you see, for us. I mean, for the gadgets, people want to sell you stuff, and including bombs and bullets and stuff like that to kill yourself with. That's their new frontier out there. Ours, humanity's, is really the issue of how much we value life. So I mean, having said that, go green.
Let me get these 2 last questions, and we close there because 5 o'clock we can get out. So let's hear the 2 questions and then.
I've been bothered by the elements of the moral element, the remorse, forgiveness, that kind of element in sentencing or before a parole board. Lots of criminals that we know have gone before parole, and the parole board would say, "Oh, he's not remorseful enough," or "he won't apologize." And then, for example, with death penalty and victims, like sometimes the victims will argue against the death penalty for the perpetrator based on that person having apologized. And so I know that benefits a whole lot of people, but should that really play a role, this moral, I know there's a moral component, but does it really have to have such a strong impact on the 3 people on parole and this guy is sorry, for example?
Your question?
My name is Paul Francisco. I'm a senior here. Senior. Thank you for coming. Sorry.
We want to hear you.
My question is the lack of due process after the death penalty is abolished. For example, my favorite 2 examples is People v. Laval, which is the New York Court of Appeals ruling in 2004 that abolished pretty much the death penalty in the state of New York and in New Jersey, where I'm from. When Governor Corzine, the previous governor of New Jersey, signed the anti-death penalty, the abolition of the death penalty bill, he also included that none of the inmates that were on death row were allowed to appeal their convictions. So my question is, where's the due process at? Where is the because whether you're innocent or not, you're still going to be held in prison for life without parole, or in the case of New York, for life.
Yes.
I think basically that when you design a system around corruption, how could you be fair and impartial? You can't be. Many of y'all probably never heard of former Governor Ryan. He's in prison right now for having a heart and having a good deed. He was a governor for 4 years. He gave a blanket clemency to everybody on Illinois death row. He said that he was in office for 4 years. And what he saw, he know people that have been in office way longer than he have. Just scared. Put stuff to the plate to do nothing. He said not only is the system in repair, it's broke on repair. And it didn't get like that overnight. How do you? That's the question. How can you? I didn't think it got like that overnight. I don't think it'd be fixed overnight. But it got to start something. Well, we'll figure it out when that.
Okay. I will say something real quick. Actually, I wanted to go back to the question about life without the possibility. Oh, did she leave? Oh, she left. Well, I just wanted to just make a quick point about life without the possibility of parole and if it's dividing the abolitionist movement. I mean, one thing that I would say is what troubles me about the fight for abolition is the arguments that really, if we want to win abolition, we have to show that we're practical. We have to be pragmatic in our approach in order to win abolition. And to be pragmatic means to pose an alternative that people would get, because really what people are so worried about is all the crime that's going on out there. So we have to be advocates of an alternative sentence. And I don't agree with that strategy. I don't understand why we have to be as activists, as social justice activists. My feeling is what we want to do is put on trial the death penalty, why it's wrong, and the best way to do it, and he left too, but the best way to do it, I think, is panels like this, to draw out what do people, how does the death penalty really affect people in society? Who are the people that are going to death row or having a life without the possibility of parole sentence? I think once you hear their stories, it's hard to then imagine that you really want that. Because if you don't see them, you don't hear them, you know, once you start visiting prisoners, you hear the stories, it becomes much harder to say, you know what, Marvin should have been, he should have been sent, you know, spent the rest of his life in prison or whatever. I know we know their stories now that they're innocent, but so I would just say, I think that, and also just the sentence in and of itself, I've talked to so many different abolitionists, and what they say to me is, I agree with you. I don't like life without the possibility of parole either. I know other European countries don't have it either, and their crime rates are, you know, our crime rates are even higher, so it's not really a sentence that, it's barbaric, it's draconian, it's way too long, but let's do it in increments, you know, and so we really have to argue it this way. But when you argue it this way, what you're doing is you're holding up a sentence that you don't agree with. You're saying, the alternative we really want is life without the possibility of parole. Just get rid of the death penalty. And in some ways it's working. Because right now the death penalty is going down. You see life without the possibility of parole sentences are blossoming, and many more people are having them. And I just don't agree that that's a strategy that we should have. Other countries don't have it. Let's talk about things that we do want as we fight for the death penalty. Let's talk about things that we need that can help prevent crime from happening in the first place. And also, let's make our prisons more humane. Let's bring back educational programs. Let's talk about those kinds of things that we want that will help to reduce crime, because the number one thing that will reduce recidivism is education in prison, and we hardly have any of it. So let's talk about those things if we really want to talk about lessening crime, instead of trying to finagle what longer sentences we need to make to give someone.
Thank you both. Thank you very much for coming. It's been a real pleasure.